Let's try this once more. Hey, Steelers Nation, it's Joe Rockey here with the Pittsburgh Steelers Syndicate. And in today's episode, we're going to be breaking down another quarterback that the Steelers have extended today in Mitch Trubisky. But before we dive into today's episode, if you have any contact with any of the Pittsburgh Steelers charities, any of the players' charities, foundations, causes, or what have you, if you can please give me that contact person by clicking up here at the contact button on my website, Elite Business Conversations, please do so because I absolutely would love to talk to them and see what their foundation is, give them a chance to talk on this platform about the good that they're doing for Steelers Nation and how potentially we could help out. I think it would be a great thing for everyone involved. Now, to tell the story of Mitch Trubisky right, I think it's best if I can just tell you how I came around the Trubisky saga and my bias therein. So after Ben retires, we get into the off season. I made a wish list, as many of us did, about who to replace Ben, the quarterback of the future. And this was entering into free agency. I probably did this around the combine territory. So we saw kind of who the quarterbacks could be. And quite frankly, at that time, I wasn't really impressed with any of them. And I knew Malik Willis would be horrible. And that was the one that people kept fronting as the front runner. So I really wasn't into the whole college class thing. If the front runner is, I don't think I'll be an NFL quarterback, which, by the way, I was right. I was glad that. So I was really focusing upon this is a team that at the time Claypool was around, give you a vertical threat. Johnson obviously hadn't had the implosion year yet, and there was reason to have optimism with the passing game. And I really wanted us to go and get Winston because I wanted a downfield threat because I believe that throwing the ball downfield is the best way to open up the running game. It used to be how Ben did it for Bettis, and it worked out really well. It's a very basic system. If the safety is further away from the line of scrimmage and your running back can get a bigger chunk of steam up into him, he's going to run him over more. And then once that reputation comes around, then you see people avoiding you the way that corners run out of the way when Henry's coming at him. That's what I would love to have for Najee. I still want that for Najee. But that's why I wanted Winston as my first choice. Trubisky was my second choice, and ultimately he's the one we got. And I was very happy with that. And I look at this from this mentality. If the Pittsburgh Steelers give you either your first or second choice, you have to be ecstatic. That's how I feel about Broderick Jones. Yes, he was my second choice after Christian Gonzalez. And I was on the record many times saying that. But you give me my number two choice? Yeah, we're not going to fight that. That's going to be awesome. So that's how I felt about Trubisky. And then I did not like the pick of Kenny as a result of that. Not saying anything now with the hindsight about Kenny, but at the time, I was like, you just went and got the quarterback you wanted. He's still young. Why are you wasting a first round draft pick on someone that could have helped this team at the time? So that was my mentality. We go into camp, and quite frankly, Trubisky looks like he's a slow learner, but the things that Canada's saying on paper that will revolutionize the league were the reports we were getting. And the reports were that he was going to be ready for game one and it was going to take the world on fire. Well, he didn't even get out September. That Jets game, which we lost because of him, there's no way around that. When he throws just interception after interception, tentative to throw the ball downfield, throws the ball out of bounds when he does, just ineffective quarterback play to the max. And by all reports of that day, Johnson's the reason he lost his job, but he freaked out him at halftime. I was like, well, I'm really glad we have Kenny now. But the bottom line with Trubisky is when he was coming here, I bought into the story. Was he was with one of the three worst coaches of the last 20 years in Matt Nagy, and he still took that team to the playoffs. He then went to Buffalo and had a great coaching staff around him, and figuring having the year of that would have made a huge difference. I mean, once that offensive coordinator went to the Giants, he took the Giants, who had one of the worst winning percentages, and took them to the playoffs. And he turned that whole thing around. So I was like, all right, we're getting a guy who can do some stuff here, some good coaching, not to mention second pick overall pedigree, all that other fun stuff. And like I said, I was really wildly disappointed. And as the year went on last year, Kenny had it rough in the beginning. Really. That Buffalo game, that Philly game, where the offenses were just ripping us apart because the defense really didn't recover from no TJ time yet. And it was sad. And Kenny ultimately comes together, gets it back great. So, long story short, why are we doing this episode here on Trubisky aside from the fact that he's a quarterback and we just signed Mason last week? So, we do this fact is we live in a cap world. Trubisky's signing bonus that he signed when he signed with us was extended across 2 years. That's roughly $2.5 million. So if we cut him, we'd have to eat that no matter what. His base salary this year was another 8. So his cap hit entering into the 2023 season was going to be just a tick over $10 million. By restructuring this deal, in the hopes that it's set up where it's not a huge signing bonus and hopefully none to get added to that, it would open up the door of simultaneously lowering his base contract that he is due now and having him under contract for the following year or beyond. And the thing with that is that if it lowers the cap hit, that's obviously good for now because any cap that you save this season rolls into next year, giving you more money to spend in the future. That's true for all the teams in the league. But the thing is that if we don't add a signing bonus to this and just say, hey, Mitch, we're going to give you like an option loaded contract. Let's say if you perform on the field and you show up and you ball out, we can make you a $20 million man. Well, if you never hit those actual on-field markers, it's not a cap hit. So it could be something that's potentially inviting to Mitch where, you show up, you ball out, you get all this money, but if everything goes well in our world, you're never going to touch the field because Kenny's not coming off of it, and we don't get a cap hit. So it's a bet on yourself type contract there. That's my hope of what it is. The last thing I would want to see with this contract is see something where almost half of it is guaranteed or something of that nature. And the reason is because if we go the direction of trading him, it cost us the same cap hit as if we would cut him. So anything that he gets in the form of a guaranteed signing bonus ends up eventually being the Steelers' problem, either in the form of dead money or in the form of him having to get it and unmovable on a salary cap. So do I think that Mitch Trubisky would have beaten out Rudolph? As you saw in my last episode early in the week on the signing Rudolph, I think Rudolph has a chance of beating him out. I think that there's a very real chance of that. I think that when we look at it all in all, there's clearly a deep connection with Rudolph has with this organization. And I thought that the writing would be on the wall to get rid of Trubisky at that time. And clearly, this could have been a position of leverage the Steelers used for Trubisky. It easily could be, hey, you guys know that me being the Steelers organization and Rudolph, we got a connection. And Rudolph has accepted that he's going to be a backup here forever, but he's going to be the first backup, not the number 3 quarterback on the depth chart. And if you're Trubisky, you're basically set with one of 2 options here. I guess 3 options. Option number 1, you go in and you immediately demand to be cut or get a trade. Well, the Steelers don't do that unless either A, you're never making the team, or it's the most beneficial thing for them. Like when they cut Arthur Millette earlier in the week, they knew no one was ever going to trade for them. And they also knew that he wasn't going to make the roster. So that was them being a solid. I don't think Trubisky has earned that type of status, first off. But the other thing is that if he goes in and demands a cut, he just goes on the free agent block, and his contemporaries to try to get a starting job, like Marcus Mariota, still unemployed. And in fact, Mariota was in the same group that he got his job with. So as I went through in the Mason episode, there's a lot of teams that don't want to back up. They think it's a waste of cap money. It's an insurance policy. But Tomlin does not rock that way. After the year of the duck, we're going to have 3 quarterbacks, and that's the way that it is. So cutting him now does not help Trubisky at all, one way or the other. At least him being in an NFL camp, him putting up preseason tape gives him a chance that if someone does go down, well, now there's tape on him and he's in condition and all that fun stuff. Because I don't think we'd ever trade Mason under any circumstances. So the second thing is that if you're Trubisky, you obviously are seeing that they just signed a backup for longer term than you. I want to be at least as long as him on my contract, which is what they have successfully achieved with this extension here. But he doesn't have any leverage in that discussion. This is all the Steelers having the power. So as I'm recording this, the contract details have not been released for the money. That's why I'm being a little speculative with this. But the bottom line is that from a pure negotiation standpoint, Trubisky has no leverage about demanding big money or big anything, except for saying, I will stay here longer, it's cheaper. And basically using the, I'm not that expensive, but I'm a veteran, so I should stay around as a way to get, I mean, let's be real, still get $4 million a year. That's life-changing money for most of us. And if you get that, and you get it, basically you're going to get it for 2 more years, well, that's a lot better than being unemployed and losing any opportunity and any funding. Because I do not believe that this moment in time, May 18th, that there is a line going out the door to get Mitch. I doubt anyone would give him that even has an opportunity of him being a starter. You know, I went through Miami and Chicago last week about teams that are afraid to have their starting quarterback shown up. Well, yeah, it's one thing to lose your spot to Mason Rudolph. He's a pocket passer and all that. It's a completely different thing to lose your starting job to a guy that the league has essentially said is not a winner, which is what Trubisky is. Rudolph had flashes, but he was behind a Hall of Famer. And aside from the Mason Garrett head injury and all that stuff, you know, you can make an argument that Mason isn't tainted goods. That's not the case with Trubisky anymore. You know, to not keep your job over the rookie, who, it's a rookie. At the end of the day, you were the number 2 pick overall. You're 5 years experience. You've taken a team to playoffs. You should never lose your job to a rookie, period. Then let alone when you come back into the season to throw the game against the number 1 rival in the Ravens. And, oh, by the way, the throws, the literally same play calls he threw interceptions with the Jets in, he did the exact same play calls and mistakes against the Ravens. That's a Canada thing for not knowing the limitations of your person. And that's also a Trubisky thing for thinking that it would bang your head against the wall to get a different result. Like, what are we doing here? So long story short, there's not a market for Trubisky. Trubisky's not a point of leverage. And what do the Steelers get out of this? They get to lower a cap hit that helps them have more money if they want to negotiate this year or they want to roll it towards next year. Because both's on the thing. But having more cap room is never a problem. You know, we're hearing lots of rumors about people that they're targeting, and I try to avoid the rumor mill until things are official. But some of them are juicy. And there's a lot of things about this team that are saying, we're going all in now. And the Steelers are not a seller. And they're going to be here in a spot where they want to build this thing up. I do think that they're making a play to say, you know what? Once in future king, we're back. You know, you're Cincinnati. You're going to implode. It's your lifestyle. It's what you do. And we're betting it's going to happen this year. So with that being said, it's hard to bet against history. That's what the Bengals do. I mean, they eventually implode. We see Baltimore has just taken themselves out of the game. So with that being said, there's no reason not to go all in. And when we look at this and say, hey, we have an opportunity because we have the leverage over Trubisky and he wants to come to the table, yeah, help us out. You know, give us more cap room. Give us more resources to go into the future. So, again, I don't think Trubisky's winning the second job if there's a legitimate battle for it and they allow a legitimate battle in training camp for it. But I do know that him taking less money overall helps Trubisky's job security because no one really cares if he's not making anything, if he's still on the back end of the roster just holding a clipboard the whole time. You know, no one cared if Mason did that last year, basically making nothing, and that's where I assume both of them will be this year. We still should have one of the cheapest quarterback rooms in the NFL so we can utilize our resources elsewhere. And look at how they used them the last 2 years. They used them in interior offensive line. And building the outsides out with Chooks and now Jones, this is a line that you can build around and be confident in now. You got a first-round running back in the backfield there, a absolute stud at wide receiver on the outside, and not to mention probably the best tight end room in terms of the first and second tight ends across the NFL right now just by putting Washington in the room. And that's obviously expectations of Washington, but that's what I believe it'll be. So when we look at everything here, the player itself, not thrilled anymore about Trubisky. He took me on a roller coaster of emotion. I was so high on him, and now I am so low on him. But he helps the Steelers by giving you a veteran backup presence. He's now cheaper, and he gives you more cap room. In that regards, it's hard to be upset about this. And it does point to another great thing. Khan is a really, really good GM, and he's kicking ass. So we thank everyone for listening so far in this episode. If you guys have not yet subscribed, getting to the end of one of our episodes, please do so. We love to give you great content. Here we go, Steelers. Here we go.